Do not touch those herbs. Evelyn Carter's voice cut through the Winter Council Hall so sharply that every conversation around her stopped. King Adrian Blackwood stood less than 6 feet away, one hand hovering above the small bundle of dried leaves tied beneath her cloak. For 10 years, palace records had identified Evelyn as a beta. For 10 years, nobody had questioned the bitter herbal scent that followed her through every corridor. But Adrian had noticed something impossible beneath it. Something hidden. Why, he asked. Evelyn's face lost its color. Because they are mine. That is not an answer. Around them, nobles and council officials watched with growing curiosity. Evelyn lowered her voice. Your Majesty, please. Whatever you think you noticed, you are mistaken. Adrian studied her. She was not embarrassed. She was terrified. That realization should have made him stop, but another detail held his attention. The herbs were arranged in a pattern he recognized from an old royal archive, though he could not remember where he had seen it. Who gave these to you? Evelyn stepped backward. No one. Then why are you wearing a restricted masking blend inside my palace? The hall went silent. Evelyn looked toward the nearest exit. 2 officials instinctively moved aside, but Adrian raised his hand, signaling everyone to remain calm. I am not accusing you of anything, he said. Then let me leave. Not until I understand why your official identity does not match what I am sensing. Evelyn's eyes met his, and for 1 second Adrian saw something deeper than fear. Recognition. You cannot understand, she whispered. If you break that bundle, you cannot undo what happens next. Adrian looked down at the herbs. What happens next? Evelyn said nothing. A senior councilman approached. Your Majesty, perhaps this matter should be handled privately. Evelyn immediately nodded. Yes. Her urgency made Adrian more suspicious. He removed the bundle from the clasp of her cloak without touching her. Evelyn reached toward it, then stopped herself. Please, she said. The single word carried more fear than anything she had said before. Adrian hesitated. Then he snapped the dried stems in half. The bitter scent disappeared almost instantly. Something softer emerged beneath it, unmistakable to every alpha in the room. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Conversations died. Evelyn closed her eyes as though a door she had spent her entire life holding shut had finally opened. Adrian stared at her. Omega, someone whispered. Evelyn opened her eyes again, but she was no longer looking at the crowd. She was looking only at Adrian. What have you done? Adrian felt his own instincts react, but he forced them beneath years of discipline. Everyone stepped back, he ordered. Nobody moved closer. Evelyn's breathing steadied, yet her expression remained filled with dread. Adrian expected anger. Instead, she whispered something that only he could hear. You have to tell them you were wrong. Adrian frowned. They already know what they sensed. Then lie. Why? Evelyn looked toward the officials surrounding them, searching faces as though one of them might already understand exactly what had happened. Because I was never hiding from you. Adrian followed her gaze. Who were you hiding from? Evelyn's answer came barely above a whisper. The people who created my identity. Across the hall, a palace clerk quietly closed the personnel file in his hands and left through a side door. Evelyn saw him go. Her fear sharpened. It is already too late, she said. Adrian turned toward the disappearing clerk, then back to the woman whose existence had just become a contradiction inside his own government. For the first time, he understood that he had not exposed a secret Omega. He had exposed a secret someone powerful had spent 10 years protecting. Adrian did not look away from the side door where the palace clerk had disappeared. Ethan, he said calmly. The commander of the royal guard stepped forward from the edge of the hall. Find out where that clerk is going. Do not confront him. I want to know who he contacts. Ethan nodded once and left without drawing attention to himself. Evelyn watched him go, then turned toward Adrian with disbelief. You still do not understand. Then help me understand. Not here. Adrian surveyed the council members and officials surrounding them. Every face carried a different version of curiosity, suspicion, or calculation. He understood immediately that anything Evelyn said in this room would travel through the palace before sunset. The council session is suspended, he announced. Everyone will leave except Miss Carter. A senior councilman objected. Your Majesty, her falsified classification may constitute a security violation. Adrian looked directly at him. Then I suggest you wait until we establish who falsified it. That ended the argument. Within minutes, the hall emptied. Adrian ordered the doors closed, but left 2 guards outside rather than inside. Evelyn remained near the center of the room, staring at the broken herbs scattered across the marble floor. How long have you used them? Adrian asked. Since I was 15. Who taught you? My mother. Where is she? Evelyn hesitated. Gone. Adrian recognized the answer as deliberately incomplete. Your personnel file says your mother died when you were 14. My personnel file says many things. Adrian crossed to the council table and opened the copy of her records left behind. Evelyn Carter, Beta, born in a small western settlement. No surviving immediate family. Admitted into Royal Administrative Service at 21. Every page looked legitimate. Who created this identity? He asked. I do not know. You said you were hiding from the people who created it. That does not mean I know their names. Adrian looked up. Then what do you know? Evelyn remained silent for several seconds. Every 6 months, a package arrived. Fresh herbs, instructions, sometimes new identification papers. I was told never to miss a dose and never to allow an alpha physician to examine me. Who sent the packages? There was never a return address. And you followed these instructions for 10 years without questioning them. Evelyn's expression tightened. I questioned everything. I simply valued staying alive more than receiving answers. Adrian closed the file. Who told you that discovery would put you in danger? My mother. Why? Evelyn finally looked directly at him. Because she said the day a Royal Alpha recognized what I was, the system would recognize me too. Adrian felt the meaning settle between them. What system? I do not know. You expect me to believe that? I do not care what you believe. Her answer was quiet, but there was nothing weak about it. I asked you to lie because there was still a chance before you broke those herbs. Now there is not. The council chamber doors opened, and Ethan returned carrying a thin folder. The clerk never reached the records office, he said. Adrian frowned. Where did he go? He entered the Eastern Archive using a clearance level assigned to the Office of Population Registry. Evelyn went completely still. Ethan placed the folder on the table. There is another problem. I checked Miss Carter's personnel file against the original registry. Adrian opened it. The page inside contained Evelyn's photograph, employment history, and official beta classification. But the authorization seal at the bottom belonged to an office that had been dissolved 12 years before the document was supposedly issued. Adrian looked at Evelyn. Your identity was not merely falsified. Evelyn stared at the impossible date. It was prepared in advance. Ethan nodded. At least 6 years before she entered royal service. A soft chime sounded from the communication terminal on the council table. Adrian activated it. A single automated notice appeared. Subject classification updated. Evelyn stepped backward. No. Adrian read the next line. Carter, Evelyn. Status flagged for immediate review. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. That is what my mother warned me about. Adrian looked toward the locked chamber doors. Somewhere inside his own government, a system that supposedly did not exist had just discovered that Evelyn Carter was an Omega. The warning remained on the council terminal for 11 seconds before the screen went dark. Evelyn stared at her reflection in the black glass. It knows, she whispered. Adrian turned to Ethan. Disconnect this chamber from every registry network. Ethan crossed to the control panel and shut down the external connection. Done. Evelyn shook her head. That will not matter. Adrian looked at her. Why? Because the alert already went somewhere. She moved toward the broken herbs, gathering several pieces from the marble floor. Her hands were steady now, but Adrian could see the effort behind that control. My mother always said the herbs were not only for people. Adrian remembered Evelyn's earlier words. The system would recognize me too. Tell me exactly what she said. Evelyn closed her fingers around the dried leaves. She said there were places where an Omega could disappear if she followed 3 rules. Never register under her birth classification. Never submit to a royal medical examination. Never let the masking blend fail inside a government building. Ethan exchanged a look with Adrian. That is unusually specific. Because she was afraid of something specific, Evelyn replied. Adrian stepped closer to the table, maintaining several feet of distance between them. What was your mother's name? Evelyn hesitated. Laura Carter. Ethan immediately accessed an offline personnel archive. After several seconds, he shook his head. No record. Evelyn gave a bitter smile. Try Laura Bennett. The room became silent. Ethan entered the second name. This time, a restricted notice appeared. Access denied by Royal Protection Order. Adrian stared at the screen. Who authorized the order? Ethan checked the metadata. His expression changed. King William Blackwood. Adrian's father. Evelyn looked at him sharply. That is impossible. Why? Adrian asked. Because my mother told me never to trust your family. Adrian absorbed the words without reacting. Then either she lied to you, or someone gave her a reason to believe that. Evelyn turned away. When I was 15, she woke me before sunrise and told me we had to leave our home. She burned every document with my birth name on it. By noon, I was Evelyn Carter, a beta from a town I had never visited. What happened to her? Adrian asked. 3 days later, she disappeared. Adrian studied her face. You said your mother was gone. You never said she was dead. Because I never knew. Evelyn's voice remained controlled, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. A letter arrived 6 months later telling me to keep using the herbs. The handwriting looked like hers, but she always wrote my name with a small loop in the first letter. That letter did not. Ethan stopped searching. Someone wanted you to believe she was still protecting you, or wanted me to keep following instructions. Adrian looked again at the restricted file. His father had personally placed Laura Bennett under royal protection, yet Evelyn had been taught to fear the royal family. The contradiction was too deliberate to ignore. Where did you live before you became Evelyn Carter? He asked. A settlement called Willow Creek, about 40 miles north of the capital. Ethan looked up immediately. There is no Willow Creek on the current regional map. There used to be. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What do you mean, used to be? Ethan opened an older archive. A map from 18 years earlier appeared. Willow Creek was there, positioned near protected northern forest land. He switched to a map from 12 years ago. The settlement had vanished. Not renamed. Not abandoned. Simply removed. Adrian leaned toward the screen. Who authorized the revision? Ethan searched the archived approval records. The Office of Population Registry. Evelyn slowly placed the broken herbs on the table. Adrian understood why her false identity had been prepared years in advance. Someone had not merely hidden one Omega. Someone had erased the place she came from. Ethan opened one final file linked to Willow Creek. Most of the information had been deleted, but a surviving document contained a list of residents scheduled for relocation. Evelyn's name was absent. Laura Bennett's was not. Beside her name was a handwritten designation that made Adrian's expression change. Protected witness. Evelyn read the words twice. Witness to what? Before Adrian could answer, Ethan found another line buried in the file metadata. The relocation operation had been approved 18 years earlier by a royal security committee. At the bottom was the name of its youngest observer, a boy only 15 years old at the time. Adrian Blackwood. Evelyn looked from the screen to the king. You were there. Adrian stared at his own name, searching a memory that refused to come. According to this file, he said quietly, I was. Adrian read his own name again, but nothing returned to him except a faint sense of cold air and pine trees. I do not remember Willow Creek, he said. Evelyn stared at him from across the table. That is convenient. I am not asking you to trust me. Good, because I do not. Ethan remained focused on the archived file. The record says Prince Adrian attended the relocation as an observer under King William's authority. The visit lasted 6 hours. Adrian searched his memory. At 15, he had accompanied his father on dozens of official journeys, but one winter remained strangely incomplete. What month? November. Something shifted. Adrian remembered waking inside a carriage with mud on his boots and his father sitting silently across from him. He remembered asking where they had been. King William had answered only that some places were safer when forgotten. Adrian had assumed it was another lesson about royal security. Now the memory felt entirely different. Evelyn watched his expression. You remember something. Not enough. Then I am leaving. She turned toward the doors. Adrian did not stop her. If you walk into the palace corridor now, whoever received that alert may know exactly where you are. Evelyn paused. And staying beside the Alpha King whose family helped erase my home is supposed to make me feel safer? Adrian had no answer that would not sound like an order. No, he said, but I can give you access to the records my government denied you. Evelyn turned back. And what do you want in return? The truth. Kings always say that when they mean obedience. Adrian held her gaze. Then do not obey me. Investigate me. The words caught her off guard. Ethan looked up from the terminal. Adrian continued. Every order signed by my father. Every report carrying my name. Every sealed archive connected to Willow Creek. You see the same documents I see. Evelyn studied him carefully. Why would you allow that? Because if my family was involved, I need to know. And if someone used my name when I was 15, I need to know that too. Before Evelyn could respond, Ethan discovered another archived entry. There is a surviving transportation log. He opened it. 12 families had officially left Willow Creek. 31 residents had been reassigned identities. 9 names were marked protected. Evelyn searched the list. My mother is there. Beside Laura Bennett's name was a destination code rather than a location. Adrian recognized it. That code belonged to the Crown Haven program. Evelyn frowned. What was that? A protection network my father created during the early years of his reign. Ethan added quietly. It was designed for witnesses whose identities could not safely remain in public records. Evelyn looked back at her mother's name. Then why did she teach me to fear the crown? Ethan opened the authorization history. The program had operated for 6 years before control transferred from the king's private office to the population registry. 2 months later, Willow Creek disappeared from official maps. Adrian felt the pieces beginning to form, but not yet the picture. Who controlled the registry then? Ethan searched. A name appeared. Chancellor Marcus Vane, Adrian's current chief political advisor. Evelyn recognized the name immediately. I have seen him before. Adrian turned toward her. Where? The night my mother made me leave. Her voice became quieter. There was a black government car parked across from our house. I saw a man standing beside it. My mother pulled me away from the window and told me never to look at him again. Ethan displayed an archived photograph of Marcus from 10 years earlier. Evelyn went still. That was him. Adrian understood immediately why the clerk had gone to the Eastern Archive. Marcus still had influence over the registry. Ethan quietly restrict access to every file connected to Evelyn and Willow Creek. I can try, but if the alert reached Chancellor Vane's office, he already knows. A knock sounded at the chamber doors. Nobody moved. Then came a second knock, calm and deliberate. A familiar voice followed from the corridor. Your Majesty, I heard there was an unusual incident during the council session. Evelyn's face changed before Adrian said a word. Marcus Vane was standing on the other side of the door. Adrian looked at Evelyn. For the first time since the herbs had broken, her fear disappeared beneath something colder. Recognition. That is his voice, she whispered. Adrian turned toward the closed doors, suddenly aware that the man who had advised him for 7 years might have been waiting 10 years for Evelyn Carter to be discovered. Adrian did not answer immediately. He looked at Ethan, then at Evelyn. Move the Willow Creek records to the private archive, he said quietly. Ethan understood. Within seconds, the files disappeared from the main terminal. Evelyn remained near the table while Adrian crossed the chamber and opened the doors himself. Chancellor Marcus Vane stood outside wearing the same composed expression Adrian had seen through 7 years of councils, negotiations, and national crises. His silvering dark hair was perfectly arranged, his formal coat immaculate. Nothing about him suggested alarm. Marcus, Adrian said. You arrived quickly. News travels quickly inside a palace. Marcus looked past him and saw Evelyn. His expression did not change, but Evelyn noticed the brief pause before he smiled. Miss Carter, I understand there has been some confusion regarding your personnel classification. Evelyn said nothing. Adrian stepped aside. Come in. Marcus entered, and Ethan closed the doors. The broken herbs still remained on the council table. Marcus glanced at them. Scent masking, he said. An unusual choice for a palace employee. Adrian watched him carefully. You recognize the blend from across the room? Marcus smiled faintly. I recognize the smell. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. There is almost no scent left. Silence followed. Marcus looked at her. For the first time, his confidence slipped by the smallest degree. Adrian noticed. Perhaps we should begin again, he said. Why are you here? Marcus turned toward him. The population registry received an automatic classification discrepancy. As Chancellor, I was notified. Why would the Chancellor receive a personnel alert about one administrative employee? Because false classifications can create security concerns. Evelyn finally spoke. Or because the system was waiting for me. Marcus looked directly at her. I am afraid I do not know what you mean. Willow Creek. The name changed nothing on his face, but his hand stopped moving toward the chair beside him. Adrian saw it. You controlled the registry when Willow Creek disappeared from official maps, he said. Marcus remained calm. Many settlements were reorganized during that period. 31 people were given new identities. Then perhaps they needed protection. Evelyn stepped closer to the table. Was my mother one of them? Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Your mother is listed as deceased. That was not my question. Adrian allowed the silence to stretch. Marcus finally answered. I never personally managed individual relocation cases. Evelyn reached into her pocket and placed one surviving piece of the masking blend on the table. Do you know what this is? You already know that I do. No, I know you recognized it. Marcus said nothing. Ethan quietly opened an old Crown Haven inventory file on a separate terminal. The formula matched Evelyn's herbs exactly, but one detail had never appeared in the public program records. The blend contained a harmless mineral compound used by early registry scanners as an exclusion marker. Ethan looked at Adrian. The herbs were a key. Evelyn turned toward him. What? Ethan explained carefully. The old identification system was designed to ignore anyone carrying this compound. Your scent was masked from alphas, but your identity was also masked from government scanners. Evelyn stared at the broken stems. My mother was hiding me from the registry. At first, Adrian said. He looked toward Marcus. Then someone changed the system. Ethan found the update record. 12 years earlier, the registry had reversed the exclusion protocol. The same compound that once made protected Omegas invisible now triggered a silent watch flag whenever the masking failed. The authorization carried Marcus Vane's office seal. Evelyn understood before anyone spoke. You turned their protection into a tracking system. Marcus's expression hardened. You are interpreting technical records without context. Then provide the context, Adrian said. Marcus looked toward the king. Your father created Crown Haven because he believed secrecy could solve political problems. I inherited the consequences. And Willow Creek was one of those consequences. Evelyn's voice became cold. My mother? Marcus looked at her, and something almost like recognition finally appeared openly in his eyes. Laura Bennett made a choice that endangered everyone involved. Adrian stepped forward. What choice? Marcus glanced toward the sealed private archive door. She kept something King William believed had been destroyed. Evelyn felt the room narrow around those words. What did she keep? Marcus smiled without warmth. If your mother never told you, Miss Carter, perhaps she had a reason. Adrian understood then that the herbs had never been the secret. They had been the lock protecting it. And somewhere inside the history of Willow Creek was something powerful enough that Marcus Vane had spent 12 years waiting for that lock to break. Marcus Vane left the council chamber under Adrian's direct order not to access the population registry until the investigation was complete. He did not protest. That disturbed Adrian more than anger would have. The moment the doors closed, Evelyn turned toward him. He knows what my mother kept. Yes. And you let him leave. Because if I accuse him without evidence, every record connected to him may disappear before morning. Evelyn looked toward the doors. Or he may disappear. Ethan answered before Adrian could. He is being observed. Evelyn gave him a skeptical look. By people inside the same government that created a false life for me. Adrian accepted the criticism without argument. Then we find the evidence before Marcus realizes how much we know. Ethan reopened the Crown Haven archives through an isolated terminal. Most files had been deleted, but King William's private correspondence remained stored separately. Adrian searched Laura Bennett's name. One result appeared, dated 13 years earlier. The message had never been sent through the official network. Instead, it had been scanned from a handwritten letter. Adrian opened it. Laura, if you are reading this, then the transfer failed. Keep Evelyn hidden. Continue the masking protocol until I can identify who compromised Crown Haven. Do not return to the capital. Do not trust the registry. The letter ended with King William's personal signature. Evelyn read it twice. My mother told me not to trust your family. Adrian studied the date. This was written 1 year before she disappeared. Ethan opened another document. It was Laura's reply. Your Majesty, the network is no longer protecting them. Someone is using the registry to identify Omega heirs before they reach legal age. Families are losing property, inheritance rights, and the ability to challenge reassignment orders. I have copied the original ledger. If anything happens to me, Evelyn must never be registered under her true classification. Evelyn slowly sat down. Omega heirs. Ethan searched the phrase. Hundreds of restricted references appeared, most connected to estates transferred after an Omega beneficiary had supposedly disappeared, relocated, or voluntarily surrendered a claim. Adrian's expression hardened. This was never only about identity. It was about ownership, Evelyn said. Ethan nodded. If an Omega heir vanished from the legal system, property could be reassigned to the next recognized claimant. Evelyn looked at the records, and the registry decided who vanished. Adrian opened another letter from his father. Laura, I believe the original ledger is the only complete record connecting the altered identities to the transferred estates. Marcus has requested direct control of Crown Haven. I have refused. Until I understand who else is involved, the ledger cannot enter the palace. Evelyn looked up. Marcus said my mother kept something your father believed was destroyed. The ledger, Adrian said. Ethan checked the timeline. 3 months after that letter, Crown Haven was transferred to the population registry through an emergency council vote. 6 months later, King William became seriously ill and withdrew from daily government. Within the year, Marcus gained operational control of the program. My father did not authorize the transfer, Adrian said. Ethan examined the document. His seal is here. His seal, yes. His signature is not. Evelyn remembered the herbs. If someone could create identities, they could create authorizations. Adrian looked at her. Exactly. Ethan continued searching until he found a sealed attachment linked to Laura's final recorded communication. The file required 2 authorization keys. One belonged to King William. The second belonged to the protected witness named in the message. Evelyn Carter. Evelyn stared at the screen. I was 15. Your mother may have registered you as the successor to her evidence, Ethan said. Adrian entered the Royal Archive key. The system accepted it, then requested Evelyn's verification. She hesitated before placing her hand against the identity reader. The scanner failed. My real identity was erased, she said. Ethan examined the verification requirements. Not entirely. The system is looking for the original protected classification. Evelyn looked toward the broken herbs. For 10 years, she had believed they were hiding who she was. Now they were the only surviving connection to the identity her mother had protected. Ethan collected a fragment and placed it beside the scanner. The mineral compound triggered an older verification protocol. The screen changed. Protected subject recognized. Evelyn Bennett. Evelyn stopped breathing for a moment. Bennett. Adrian looked at her. Your mother's real surname. The archive opened. There was no ledger inside. Only a short message from Laura. Evelyn, if this is opened for you, then someone has already discovered what you are. Do not search for the ledger in the palace. I placed it where the crown could never take it, and the registry could never find it. Trust the memory the king buried. Adrian read the final sentence again. The memory the king buried. Evelyn turned toward him. Adrian suddenly remembered pine trees, a frozen creek, and a young blonde girl standing beside him with herbs tied around her wrist. Then came his father's voice, urgent and close. Adrian, you must forget her name. He stepped away from the terminal. Evelyn saw the recognition on his face. What is it? Adrian looked at her as 18 years of missing memory began returning in fragments. I did not only visit Willow Creek, he said quietly. I met you there. Adrian stood motionless as the memory returned in fragments, each one sharper than the last. A frozen creek. White pines. A girl with pale hair sitting on a wooden fence while she carefully tied dried herbs around her wrist. You hated the smell, he said. Evelyn stared at him. What? The herbs. You told me they smelled like wet earth and old medicine. Her expression changed. How could you know that? Adrian closed his eyes for a moment. Because you said it to me. Another memory surfaced. He had been 15, traveling north with his father under the explanation of inspecting protected settlements. Evelyn had been younger, quiet but curious, watching the royal visitors from behind Laura Bennett. Adrian remembered offering her a piece of chocolate from the carriage. She had refused it because her mother told her never to accept gifts from strangers. You gave me a silver coin, Evelyn whispered suddenly. Adrian opened his eyes. You remember? Not you. A boy. She searched his face as if trying to replace the king standing before her with someone buried 18 years in the past. He said princes were not strangers. Adrian almost smiled. You told him that was exactly what a stranger would say. Evelyn stepped backward, overwhelmed by the recognition. Ethan remained silent beside the terminal. Why did we forget? She asked. Adrian looked toward his father's message. I do not think we both did. Evelyn understood. Your father made you forget, or convinced me that what I remembered was a dream. Adrian recalled the carriage ride home. His father had spoken to him for hours about duty, classified operations, and the danger of remembering protected identities. There had been no supernatural erasure, only deliberate confusion imposed on a 15-year-old who trusted his father completely. He buried the memory by giving me another explanation for it, Adrian said. Ethan reopened the old travel records. King William changed the official destination of that journey. The royal schedule says you visited a military supply station 60 miles west of Willow Creek. Evelyn looked at Adrian. So even your presence was hidden, which means my father was protecting the settlement. Adrian searched the returning memory. Laura had taken King William into a small community library while Adrian waited outside with Evelyn. Before leaving, Evelyn had shown him something beneath the floorboards of an abandoned greenhouse. There was a box, Adrian said. Evelyn frowned. What box? You called it your mother's boring treasure. Her eyes widened. The greenhouse. Ethan searched the old Willow Creek property map. A greenhouse had once stood behind the Bennett residence. The structure no longer appeared on modern records, but satellite surveys showed an undeveloped section of forest where the settlement had been. If Laura hid the ledger there, Ethan said, Marcus may never have found it because Willow Creek was removed from every active map. Adrian looked toward Evelyn. We can reach the old settlement in less than 2 hours. Evelyn immediately shook her head. No. Why? Because Marcus knows you are investigating me. If the king suddenly travels to a place that officially does not exist, he will know exactly what we found. Adrian considered her point. Then I do not go. Evelyn looked surprised. You expect me to go alone? No. I expect you to decide whether you go at all. The answer silenced her. Adrian continued. This is your mother's evidence. Your history. I will provide whatever protection and access you request, but I will not turn your past into another royal operation. Evelyn studied him for several seconds. Ethan comes with me. Ethan nodded. Agreed. And no royal vehicles. Agreed. No official communication once we leave the capital. Adrian accepted that too. Evelyn looked toward the archive screen where her true name remained visible. Evelyn Bennett. For years, she had lived inside an identity created by people she could not see. Now, for the first time, she was choosing what happened next. We leave before sunrise, she said. Adrian nodded. Then Ethan's terminal signaled. A public notice had been issued through the council communication network. Evelyn read the headline and felt every trace of relief disappear. Palace employee investigated for illegal scent manipulation and possible influence over the Alpha King. The notice had been authorized less than 3 minutes earlier. Adrian's expression hardened. Marcus. Ethan opened the attached statement. It demanded an emergency public hearing within 48 hours. Evelyn looked at Adrian. He is not trying to find the ledger anymore. Adrian understood immediately. He is trying to make anything we find look like something I invented to protect you. Evelyn stared at the accusation carrying her false name across the kingdom. Marcus had changed the battlefield before they could even leave the palace. But this time, she did not reach for the remaining herbs. Then we find the truth before he finishes writing his version of it. Before sunrise, Evelyn and Ethan left the capital in an ordinary dark sedan registered to a private transportation service, carrying no royal insignia and using no government communication devices. Adrian remained at the palace, exactly where Marcus expected him to be. By 7 in the morning, the Alpha King was seated before the Emergency Council while Chancellor Marcus Vane presented the public accusation against Evelyn Carter. The issue is not her classification, Marcus said. The issue is whether she deliberately manipulated her scent to influence the judgment of the crown. Adrian watched him from the head of the chamber. Do you have evidence that my judgment was influenced? Your actions speak for themselves. Within hours of discovering her true classification, you restricted government archives and suspended registry access. Because we discovered falsified documents. Marcus spread his hands. Documents interpreted by people under your direct authority. Adrian understood the trap. If he defended Evelyn personally, Marcus would call it instinct. If he remained silent, the accusation would define her before she could answer it. So Adrian did neither. "I request an independent review," he said. The chamber shifted with surprise. Marcus hesitated. "You are surrendering control of the investigation? I am removing myself from it." Adrian placed copies of the recovered records on the table. 3 retired judges, 2 independent archivists, and 1 representative chosen by the northern communities will examine every document, including mine. Marcus's confidence tightened. "And Miss Carter? She will speak for herself." Nearly 80 miles north, Evelyn stood before what remained of Willow Creek. The road ended half a mile from the old settlement, forcing her and Ethan to continue on foot through white pines and winter grass. Most buildings were gone, but their stone foundations remained beneath years of moss. Evelyn recognized nothing until she saw the creek. Then memory returned without warning, her mother's hand holding hers. A wooden bridge. A boy complaining that his shoes were wet. "This way," she said. The Bennett house was gone, but the greenhouse foundation remained behind it. Evelyn walked to the far corner and knelt beside a flat stone. "I remember hiding something here." Ethan helped move the loose debris without damaging the foundation. Beneath the stone was a narrow metal compartment. Inside rested a weatherproof box, a bundle of letters, and a thick handwritten ledger. Evelyn touched the cover but did not open it immediately. Her mother's initials were pressed into the leather. L.B. "She really left it here," Evelyn whispered. Ethan examined the letters. One envelope carried Evelyn's true name. She opened it. "My dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, then hiding you is no longer enough. The ledger contains the names of every Omega whose identity was altered through the registry and every property claimed transferred afterward. But remember this above everything else. Your classification is not evidence of anyone's right to you. Not a government. Not an alpha. Not even a king." Evelyn stopped reading. For 10 years, she had believed her mother wanted her to hide because being an Omega made her vulnerable. Now she understood something different. Laura had hidden her because powerful people had built systems around that vulnerability. Ethan carefully opened the ledger. Hundreds of names filled the pages. Beside each one were birth classifications, original family records, replacement identities, and transferred estates. Near the final pages, Evelyn found her own name. Evelyn Bennett. Omega. Legal beneficiary of the Bennett Community Trust. Status unresolved. Ethan read the next entry and went silent. The beneficiary rights connected not to a private fortune, but to the land beneath 7 former protected settlements, including Willow Creek. "This is why they needed you erased," he said. Evelyn stared at the page. "Not because I own the land." She turned to the original agreement attached inside the ledger. "Because I have the legal right to challenge every transfer made after the communities disappeared." Ethan looked toward the tree line. A vehicle had stopped at the end of the abandoned road. Evelyn heard footsteps approaching through the winter grass. She closed the ledger and stood. A familiar palace clerk emerged between the trees, the same man who had left the council hall after Adrian broke the herbs. He stopped several yards away and raised both empty hands. "I am not here for Marcus," he said. Ethan remained alert. "Then why are you here?" The clerk looked directly at Evelyn. "Because Laura Bennett saved my mother's identity 18 years ago." He reached slowly into his coat and removed a sealed envelope. "And because Marcus already knows you found the ledger." Evelyn felt the cold air settle around her. "How?" The clerk handed her the envelope. "Because the public hearing was never meant to prove you manipulated the king." Evelyn opened the message and read the official order inside. Marcus had petitioned the council to invalidate every claim connected to her original identity before she could present evidence. The hearing would begin the next morning. Evelyn looked toward the distant capital. Marcus had expected Adrian to defend her as his secret Omega. He had expected instinct, scandal, and royal interference. Instead, Evelyn closed her mother's ledger and handed the envelope back. "Good," she said. Ethan looked at her. "Good." Evelyn's expression became calm. "He wants the kingdom to decide whether Evelyn Bennett legally exists." She held the ledger against her chest. "Then tomorrow, I will introduce myself." By the time Evelyn returned to the capital, darkness had settled over the palace and the accusation against her had spread across every major news service in the kingdom. She entered through a private administrative entrance with Ethan beside her and the ledger secured inside a plain document case. Adrian was waiting in the records room, but he did not approach when she entered. His eyes went immediately to the case. You found it. Evelyn placed it on the table. My mother kept records of every altered identity she could verify. Adrian opened the ledger only after Evelyn nodded. He read several pages in silence. This could expose the entire registry operation. It can expose more than that. Evelyn showed him the agreement connected to the Bennett Community Trust. My original identity gives me standing to challenge the land transfers. Adrian understood immediately. That is why Marcus wants your identity invalidated before tomorrow. Yes. Adrian closed the ledger. Then we provide this to the independent review panel tonight. Evelyn shook her head. Copies, yes. The original stays with me. Adrian looked at her for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. His lack of argument surprised her. For years, every authority figure in Evelyn's life had decided what information she could carry, what names she could use, and what parts of herself were safe enough to reveal. Adrian simply accepted her decision. There is something else, she said. She handed him Laura's letter. Adrian read the line about classification granting no one ownership over Evelyn, not even a king. His expression became unreadable. Your mother was right. Evelyn studied him. About which part? All of it. Silence settled between them. Adrian continued. The council will try to turn tomorrow into a discussion about whatever connection exists between us. Evelyn felt the familiar tension return. There is no us. I know. The answer came without hesitation. But Marcus does not need reality. He needs a story people will believe. Evelyn crossed her arms. Then let me make something clear before he tells that story for me. Whatever your instincts recognized when those herbs broke, they do not define me. Agreed. And they do not give you a claim over me. Agreed. You are agreeing very quickly. Adrian almost smiled. Would you prefer resistance? I would prefer honesty. His expression became serious. Then honestly, I felt something when your scent was revealed. Recognition. Familiarity. Perhaps something stronger that I do not yet understand. But none of that creates an obligation for you. Evelyn had prepared herself to argue. His answer left her with nowhere to direct the anger she had carried for years. Then why protect me? She asked. I am protecting the investigation. That is not what I asked. Adrian held her gaze. Because someone used my government to erase your identity. Because my father's work was corrupted after he tried to protect your mother. Because you deserve the chance to speak before anyone decides who you are again. He paused. And because I want you safe. Wanting something does not make it my right to control it. Evelyn looked away first. Ethan entered with the preliminary findings from the independent archivists. They authenticated the first 12 pages of the ledger and 3 supporting letters. That is enough to delay any immediate ruling against Evelyn's legal identity. Adrian took the report. Good. There is a problem, Ethan said. Marcus has changed the hearing format. It will be public. Evelyn was not surprised. Of course it will. Ethan continued. He has also submitted a witness who claims the masking herbs were designed specifically to manipulate royal alphas. Adrian's expression hardened. Who? Ethan placed a photograph on the table. Evelyn recognized the woman immediately. Dr. Helen Ward, the physician who had supplied her herbs for nearly 8 years. She told me they were medicine, Evelyn said. Ethan nodded. Tomorrow she intends to testify that you knew exactly what they could do. Evelyn stared at the photograph. Another piece of her protected life had become evidence against her. Adrian reached for the report, but Evelyn placed her hand over it first. No. He looked at her. Tomorrow, you do not defend me. Evelyn. Marcus wants the Alpha King standing between the Council and his secret Omega. He wants every fact to look like instinct. Adrian understood. What do you want me to do? Evelyn picked up the ledger. Sit there. Listen. Let him say everything he thinks will destroy me. She looked toward the palace windows, where the lights of the Capitol stretched into the distance. Then let Evelyn Bennett answer him herself. The public hearing began at 9 the next morning, and every seat in the council chamber was occupied. Evelyn entered without the masking herbs for the first time in 10 years. She wore a simple navy dress and carried no royal insignia, only the document case containing her mother's ledger. Adrian sat at the head of the chamber, exactly as Evelyn had requested. He did not stand when she entered. He did not speak for her. Marcus Vane watched from the opposite table with the calm expression of a man who believed the ending had already been written. Miss Carter, he began. Evelyn stopped before the council. My legal name is Evelyn Bennett. A murmur moved through the chamber. Marcus smiled faintly. That claim remains under review. Then review it. Evelyn placed a certified copy of her protected identity record on the table. Marcus turned toward the council. This woman entered royal service under a false classification and concealed her Omega status using scent-altering substances. We must determine whether those substances were intended to influence the Alpha King. Dr. Helen Ward was called forward. Evelyn had trusted her for 8 years, but Helen could barely meet her eyes. Did you provide Miss Carter with the herbs? Marcus asked. Yes. Did you understand that the blend could affect how alphas perceived her? Helen hesitated. It concealed her natural scent, and therefore altered perception. Yes. Marcus turned toward Evelyn. There is your answer. Evelyn remained still. No. There is your wording. She looked at Helen. Dr. Ward, did those herbs contain anything capable of creating attraction, loyalty, confusion, or impaired judgment? Helen glanced toward Marcus. Answer the question, Evelyn said. Helen swallowed. No. The chamber shifted. Evelyn continued. Were they designed to influence an alpha? No. What were they designed to do? Helen looked down. Hide an Omega classification. And who instructed you to continue supplying them to me? Silence followed. Marcus stood. That information is irrelevant. One of the independent judges interrupted. It is directly relevant. Helen closed her eyes briefly. The population registry. Marcus's confidence finally cracked. Evelyn opened the ledger. For years, the same office now accusing me of illegal masking secretly maintained the masking protocol itself. She handed certified records to the review panel. The question is not why I hid my identity. The question is why the government needed me hidden until the moment it became useful to expose me. Marcus rose again. This ledger has not been fully authenticated. The first sections have. Not the claims concerning property transfers. Evelyn nodded. Then perhaps we should discuss the original registry records instead. Ethan entered carrying sealed archive boxes authorized by the independent panel. Marcus turned sharply. Evelyn continued. My mother's ledger provided names. The archivists used those names to locate original transfer orders your office failed to delete. Ethan placed the first document before the judges. 31 altered identities. 7 dissolved community trusts. Millions of dollars in property transferred to private holding groups connected to former registry officials. Marcus looked toward Adrian. Your Majesty, this proceeding is being manipulated. Adrian remained seated. Do not ask me. Ask the panel. It was exactly what Marcus had not expected. No royal rescue. No Alpha claiming his Omega. Only evidence. Evelyn turned another page. My identity matters because the Bennett Community Trust was never legally dissolved. As its surviving beneficiary, I have standing to challenge every transfer connected to Willow Creek. Marcus's face hardened. You were a child. Yes. You understood nothing about these arrangements. Also true. Evelyn closed the ledger. But my age did not make forgery legal. A judge examined the documents. Chancellor Vane, your office authorized the transfer protocol. Marcus looked around the chamber and realized the argument had moved beyond Evelyn. I inherited a damaged system. Evelyn met his eyes. Then why did you redesign that system to track the very people it was created to protect? Marcus said nothing. Ethan placed one final record before the panel. It contained the authorization reversing the old masking exclusion protocol. Marcus Vane's signature appeared at the bottom. Not merely his office seal. His signature. The silence that followed was absolute. Evelyn looked toward Adrian only once. He remained exactly where she had asked him to remain. Behind her, not in front of her. Marcus had built his entire defense around the assumption that an Alpha King would protect a secret Omega with power instead of allowing her to stand on truth. He had been wrong. Evelyn faced the council again. For 10 years, I was told that being discovered would destroy my life. Today I understand why. My existence does not threaten this kingdom. She placed her hand on the ledger. It threatens the lie that allowed people inside this government to decide who was permitted to exist on paper and who was convenient to erase. The council did not adjourn after Evelyn finished speaking. It could not. Too many questions had entered the room, and for the first time, Marcus Vane no longer controlled which ones were asked. The independent judges ordered every population registry record connected to Crown Haven preserved immediately. Marcus remained seated while officials authenticated his signature on the tracking protocol. "This proves an administrative decision," he said. "It does not prove criminal intent." Evelyn looked at him across the chamber, then explained the property transfers. "I did not personally approve every transfer." "No one said you did." Her calm answer unsettled him more than an accusation would have. "But someone designed a system that made those transfers possible, and my mother believed the original ledger could identify everyone involved." Marcus glanced toward the document case. Evelyn noticed. So did Adrian. "You still want the ledger," she said. Marcus leaned back. "I want reliable evidence." "You have spent 18 years trying to decide what counts as reliable." One of the archivists interrupted with a new finding. The private holding groups that received land from the erased settlements shared the same legal administrator. That administrator had served as Marcus's financial advisor during his years at the registry. Marcus immediately denied knowledge of the connection, but the room had changed. His explanations no longer ended questions. They created more. Adrian finally spoke. "Chancellor Vane, pending completion of the independent investigation, you are suspended from all government authority." Marcus looked directly at him. "You are making a mistake." "Perhaps. That is why the evidence will be examined by people who do not answer to me." Marcus stood slowly. "And when this kingdom realizes its king allowed an Omega with a false identity to destabilize the government." Evelyn answered before Adrian could. "There it is." Marcus turned toward her. "There's what?" "The reason you needed me to be dangerous." She stepped closer to the review table. "If I am simply a citizen with evidence, people examine the evidence. If I am a secret Omega controlling an Alpha King, people examine me instead." The chamber fell silent. Marcus said nothing. Evelyn continued. "You needed my scent to matter more than my documents. You needed his instincts to matter more than his decisions. That was the only story that could make the truth disappear again." Adrian watched her without interruption. Marcus looked toward the council members, but even those who had supported him earlier avoided his eyes. Ethan entered through the side door and handed the lead judge another authenticated file. This was recovered from the registry's sealed correspondence archive. The judge read it, then looked toward Marcus. "It is an order directing Dr. Ward to continue Miss Bennett's masking protocol while maintaining an active surveillance file on her movements." Evelyn turned toward Helen. The physician lowered her head. "Who signed it?" Evelyn asked. The judge answered. "Marcus Vane." Marcus stood completely still. Evelyn felt no triumph, only clarity. The Herbs had never protected her from one danger. They had kept her hidden while allowing the people controlling the system to know exactly where she was. Marcus had not been waiting to discover her. He had been waiting for the right moment to use her discovery. The lead judge ordered Marcus's government credentials surrendered pending investigation. He complied without protest, but before leaving, he stopped beside Evelyn. "You believe exposing the system will free everyone caught inside it," he said quietly. "You have no idea what happens when these records become public." Evelyn met his gaze. "Then perhaps the people whose lives are written in them should decide." Marcus walked away under official escort, and the chamber doors closed behind him. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then the lead archivist opened the final sealed section of Laura Bennett's ledger. Inside was a list of more than 200 names, each connected to an altered identity. Some were marked alive. Others were marked location unknown. Evelyn stared at them. Her story had never been the center of the secret. She had only been the key capable of opening it. Adrian approached only after the hearing formally ended. He stopped several feet away. "What do you want to do?" Evelyn looked at the names again. Once, she would have waited for a king to tell her what happened next. Now she already knew. "Find them," she said. "Every person this system erased." Adrian nodded. "Then, that is what the investigation will do." Evelyn closed the ledger. "Not the royal investigation." Adrian understood. "Independent." "Completely." He nodded again. Evelyn looked toward the broken system that had controlled her identity for half her life. For the first time, she was not asking whether the truth could protect her. She was asking how many people the truth could finally bring home. The independent commission began work before midnight. By morning, the first restored identities were already being verified against archived birth records, property deeds, and Crown Haven files. Evelyn sat at the end of a long conference table while investigators compared Laura Bennett's ledger with records the registry had kept hidden for nearly 2 decades. Every match represented more than evidence. It represented a person who had been told that some part of their life no longer legally belonged to them. "We have confirmed 47 identities," Ethan said. 12 of those people are still alive. Evelyn looked at the list. "Contact them privately. No public announcement until they decide what they want." The lead archivist nodded. "That will slow the process." "Then it slows." Evelyn's answer was immediate. They have already had enough decisions made for them. Across the capital, the council formally suspended the old classification tracking system and placed the population registry under independent supervision. Marcus Vane remained under investigation, but Evelyn refused every request to turn the proceedings into a personal confrontation. She had already said what mattered. Now the records had to speak. Adrian honored his promise and removed royal authority from the commission's daily work. He signed the legal orders necessary to preserve evidence, then stepped away. 3 days later, Evelyn found him alone in the palace garden beside a row of winter roses. "You have been avoiding the commission," she said. "I have been staying out of its way. There is a difference?" "According to you, yes." Evelyn almost smiled. Adrian looked at the small cloth pouch in her hand. He recognized it immediately. The herbs. The last complete bundle. She opened the pouch and studied the dried leaves that had controlled the shape of her life for 10 years. "I used to think these kept me safe." They did for a while. Then the same system turned them into a way to watch me. Adrian nodded. Protection becomes control when the protected person loses the right to choose. Evelyn looked at him. "That sounds unusually wise for a king." "I have had a difficult week." This time, she did smile. The silence between them felt different now. Not empty, not dangerous, simply honest. "The council wants to restore my legal identity," she said. "Evelyn Bennett. If I choose it." Adrian noticed the distinction. "And will you?" Evelyn looked toward the palace windows. "Carter was given to me as a disguise. Bennett belonged to my mother. But both names are part of my life. Then keep both. Evelyn Bennett Carter. It is your name. You do not need royal approval." She studied him for a moment. "You really have changed." Adrian shook his head. "I think I am finally learning what my father understood too late. Protecting someone is not the same as deciding for them." Evelyn closed the pouch. "There is something I need to ask you." Adrian waited. "When you broke the herbs, did you know what would happen?" "No." "Would you do it again?" The question remained between them. Adrian answered carefully. "Knowing what I know now? No. I would ask you why you were afraid, and I would listen when you told me to stop." Evelyn's expression softened. That answer mattered more than an apology repeated 100 times. "Good," she said. She walked to the stone basin at the center of the garden and emptied the herbs into a sealed evidence envelope waiting on the table beside it. "I thought about destroying them." Adrian looked at the envelope. "Why did you not?" "Because they are evidence now, and because I do not need to destroy my past to stop living inside it." Later that afternoon, the commission announced that the Bennett Community Trust would be temporarily restored pending full legal review. Evelyn immediately petitioned to place the disputed land under community stewardship rather than personal ownership. When a reporter asked whether the Alpha King had influenced her decision, Evelyn answered with one sentence. "The king did not make this choice. I did." Adrian heard the statement from his office and smiled. That evening, another message arrived from the commission. Of the 12 living people whose identities had been confirmed, 11 had agreed to speak privately. The 12th had requested only one person, Evelyn. Attached to the request was a name she had not seen in 10 years. Laura Bennett. Evelyn read it once, then again. Her hands began to tremble. At the bottom of the message were 6 words that changed everything she thought she knew about her past. "Your mother has been waiting for you." Evelyn read the message until the words blurred. For 10 years, she had trained herself not to hope that Laura Bennett was alive. Hope had been more dangerous than grief because grief could eventually become quiet. Hope kept asking questions. "Where is she?" Evelyn asked. Ethan checked the commission file. A protected residence about 90 miles north of the capital. She entered an independent witness program 12 years ago under another identity. Evelyn looked at him. "Why did she never contact me?" "She says she tried." The answer hurt more than silence. 2 hours later, Evelyn stood outside a modest house surrounded by tall pines. Adrian had offered transportation, security, anything she needed. Evelyn had asked for only a car and privacy. He had accepted her decision. She walked to the front door alone. Before she could knock, it opened. The woman standing there was older than Evelyn remembered, her blonde hair now touched with silver, but her eyes were exactly the same. Evelyn. Laura said her name as though she had been holding it inside for a decade. Evelyn could not move. You are alive. Laura nodded, tears filling her eyes. I am so sorry. Evelyn had imagined this moment 1,000 different ways. In some versions, she embraced her mother immediately. In others, she demanded answers. Reality was quieter. Why did you leave me? Laura looked down. Because Marcus found Crown Haven. Your identity had already been prepared, and I believed separating from you was the only way to keep him from connecting us. I sent letters through people I trusted. Later, I learned they never reached you. The Herbs did. Laura looked surprised. I stopped sending them after the first year. Evelyn understood. Marcus had maintained the disguise after Laura disappeared, turning protection into surveillance. He kept sending them. Laura closed her eyes. Then he knew where you were. Yes. Evelyn waited for anger to consume her, but something else came instead. Relief mixed with sadness for all the years neither of them could recover. The ledger survived, she said. Laura looked at her. You found Willow Creek. Adrian remembered the greenhouse. Laura's expression softened at the name. King William hoped he would someday. Evelyn finally understood the message about the buried memory. Her mother had trusted that one forgotten afternoon might outlive every corrupted record. Weeks passed. The Independent Commission restored dozens of identities and began reviewing every disputed property transfer connected to the old registry. Marcus Vane was formally removed from public office while the legal investigation continued. Dr. Ward agreed to cooperate fully, and the old tracking system was permanently dismantled. Evelyn chose to register her legal name as Evelyn Bennett Carter, keeping both the life she had inherited and the life she had survived. She also accepted a position on the Independent Restoration Commission, not as the king's representative, but as an advocate chosen by the affected communities. Months later, Evelyn returned to the palace garden where Adrian was waiting beside the winter roses. She no longer carried herbs. No bitter scent covered her identity. Adrian noticed, but he said nothing about it. My mother asked about you, Evelyn said. Should I be worried? Probably. He smiled. Evelyn stood beside him, comfortable with the silence. Do you remember what you asked me after the hearing? She said. What you wanted to do next? I have an answer now. Adrian turned toward her. I want a life where nobody decides who I am before I enter the room. That sounds reasonable. And I want to know who you are when you are not being king. Adrian considered the question. I am still working on that. Good. Evelyn smiled. So am I. He did not reach for her. He did not declare destiny, instinct, or ownership. He simply offered to walk with her. Evelyn chose to say yes. Together, they moved through the garden at an unhurried pace, two people no longer bound by a secret created 18 years earlier. Adrian had once broken the herbs and exposed an identity Evelyn was desperate to hide. In the end, however, the most important thing he learned was that discovering someone's truth did not give him the right to possess it. And Evelyn learned that freedom was not simply being seen for who she truly was. Freedom was having the power to decide when, how, and by whom she would be known.